So, Charlie and I met at a poker game 31 years ago at Glenn Dranos. Glenn's in the back doing business. Is there a deal going on?
I'm the only person watching the live stream right now.
And,
Well, thanks.
and
Boost my confidence in this whole thing. Well, I was suspicious of in the first place, but Jim will do anything to be on stage.
that's
right?
true. So we've been buddies pretty much ever since, and more or less. And a lot of times Charlie comes, especially when he has a show up like now, he'll come on Saturday and to talk to clients and hang out. And usually he comes, and I'm in my office, and he comes and sits down, and we start talking. And then like 2 hours later, we're like, oh, wait a second. We're supposed to be talking to the clients. So I'm hoping that this will be like one of our talks and just sort of go places
Yeah.
with a little focus from me.
From you?
Well, you know, it probably not
It'll
good.
be all right, whatever. If any of you seen the Madness, all right, you know where we're going with this. All right.
So I wanted to start with New York City. So you were born in Lewiston, Maine,
Yeah.
and moved to Maryland when you were still how old?
Junior in high school,
Okay, junior in high school. And went to school in Virginia,
West Virginia.
West Virginia, small college. Studied art?
Yep.
Okay. So how'd you get to New York? What brought you here?
I got, because it's a great story. Interesting. I was in West Virginia during the Appalachian program, remember? So I was one of those poor kids that needed a break down there. So when I graduated from school, they had a program at Saratoga Springs called SIX, a summer arts program. I had no idea what I was going to do with my life. I got out of school. They gave me $212 to fly. I hitchhiked. They never gave me my transcripts because I didn't send in a receipt for it. So, but I mean, leaving school in West Virginia was not a loss. And I got to Saratoga Springs, and Philip Guston was the art teacher that summer. Now, I had to look him up. I mean, I didn't have a great idea what art was about, but Philip was on the ropes. He wasn't making any money. He was teaching for a living, and he took to me. We got along great. One night, I was very political as well. And what got me to New York was one evening, I was with Susan Dreyer in a small campus housing area on a hot August night, and the Republican National Convention was taking place. And Richard Nixon won, the Vietnam War was going to continue, and Rockefeller was running against him. He said, I'll end the war. Well, the nomination went to Nixon. I walked out of that place, and I remember this vividly. I walked out of the place, Susan was with me. I was angry. I kicked the trash can. Seemed simple enough. Now, my whole life starts with kicking a trash can. What happens? The lid comes off the trash can, and it's rolling down the street. What's going on now? It's a cop car is going this way. No shit. The lid hits the cop car. Now, I got long hair and a mustache, and those were rights in those days to beat me up. And then I told Susan, get in the car, let's get out of here. So we drove down to a bar, which was always a bar. There will be a bar in most of my stories up to the last 28 years, and as a focal point. So we get to the bar, and the cops pull up behind us, and they grab me, and they grab her, and I beat the cops up.
You beat the
I
cops
hit the cops. Well, and I couldn't believe I did that. Actually, I was so shook up, I went home. Well, everybody in Saratoga Springs with a mustache got arrested that night. And I was sleeping. I had a friend, Mike Henry, who had scoliosis. He had a mustache. And I said to him, I'm so sorry. He goes, Charlie, nothing ever happens to me. It was the most exciting night of my life. So that morning I got a hangover. I'm in my studio, dribbling some paint. This giant shadow, a glass door, comes to the thing, opens the door. Guston walks in. He goes, kid, this is not the town for you. Call Morty Feldman at this New York studio school, 8 West 8th Street, and get down there.
The musician.
Morty Feldman, the musician, wonderful guy. And that's how it happened. So I didn't have any idea how you got to New York, except what road led to here. So I got here. I had $11. I slept in the park. I spent 7 of them that night with a girlfriend drinking, thinking it's forever. And I've never been so rich. I didn't have any debt. I really owned the $11. Now, I've got so much debt now, I wouldn't even know how much I owned. So it was kind of fun. The story took place, because it was a small town, right? The town was tiny then. The art scene was really
New
minuscule.
York City.
New York City.
And what year?
68.
1968.
Yeah. 68. I was on 8th Street when they blew up the building. Weathermen blew up a building on 9th Street.
Right.
I was in the studio school when I saw the cars went down, lights going off next to Baldacci's, and I walked down and I saw these gay people, women, men, beating cops over the head with their purses, and I went, Jesus Christ, that's weird. That was Stonewall. I mean, things were happening everywhere, right, Chris? Chris, my friend from then, in those times. And it was everything. I'd go to a bar, and you'd talk to William Burroughs. Where's Glenn? Remember those days? People were in the bars. And Elaine de Kooning, I met people then.
So you were friendly with Elaine de Kooning?
Yeah, I met her, and she was a wonderful lady. And so I knew that this is a good one. We'll lead up to this story. So I had a loft. I got a loft on Bleecker Street. It cost me $110 a month. And I loved it was so great. I was so grateful to be finally in town, have a place. And I remember David Hare came by. He was a sculptor. He said, I'm going to the Prix de Rome. I'm during the show. I just dropped some acid, and I'm going to talk him to death. And if you want to go to Rome, I'll get you in, because I'm going to wipe him out. I said, David, is there any money to stay in New York? I don't want to go to Rome. Jeez. I know somebody said, you crazy? I said, no. But I was working construction, and then I knew what to do. I was told, you call Elaine and invite her to supper. That's how you made friends. So I had a girlfriend, and I had a small loft, and a little teeny stove, and I had about $4, and I got a pot roast and potatoes, and maybe got some greens, I don't know, but I got a gallon at that time of what was called Pride of Cucamonga. Everybody was drinking. It was Astor Liquors. It was a rage. Pride of Cucamonga. It had a handle on it. And I got a gallon of white vermouth, because I knew she liked to drink too. So that would go with the pork, right? That's perfect. So she comes over, and I take it, put the food in the oven, and I got my girlfriend there, and then I open the wine bottle, and it's sweet vermouth. It makes my mind pucker. But think of it now. It was a gallon of sweet vermouth. So I go, shit, it's sweet vermouth. She goes, well, let's taste it. So we started working on it. And actually, we got about halfway through it, right? And I realized, damn, the roast, I gotta go check the roast. Now, it's a little oven, the kind you had with a little thing below. So I go, open the thing, get the roast, see what it's doing, and I grab a fork, and of course, we're all drunk. I stab the roast, and it goes on the floor. I chased the roast all the way down the loft and back. Well, my girlfriend went to bed. That was it. She couldn't. Elaine loved me. She said, I stabbed it finally, and I won. I put the thing on the table. And we became best friends ever. She goes, most people do fancy things for me. I love you. She goes, that was great. So we became pals.
That's fantastic.
And she was that generation of abstract expressionist artists didn't have assistants. They did the work themselves mostly. And they were generous, and they were curious. They all wanted to know what are young people doing? What are you thinking about? What's happening? What's the world going on? They were deeply interested in their life. It was a great time.
What do you consider yourself? That's an abstract expressionist. Are you an expressionist?
Yeah, I'm an emo. I'm an emotional artist. I like
an emo.
I'm an emo, whatever that means.
My kids would love that.
I like the gestural abstraction. I got to be careful of it because I'm a white guy, and that's what we've done most damage to is white. Gestural painting. It took me forever to get over de Kooning. And then.
So what were you painting in the late '60s, early '70s?
Big paintings of saints and Bacon. Francis, really, I love the.
Not Bacon that you're eating.
No, Francis Bacon.
Francis Bacon. Okay.
And I wanted to be. I mean, it was such an amazing experience to be here that I figured I'd take it the whole way. It was so much work to be an artist. I mean, it was the most creative things I've done in my life are what I've done to get to the studio. I mean, I've attended bar, I'm a contractor, I'm a roofer, I've done siding, I've done electric, I've been a short order cook, I've made models of busts for the mob, I've actually worked, I've done some, that's another story. I mean, anything I could do to make a living, I've done. And I've gotten to enjoy that part of my life as much as being the artist.
But, and let's talk about the painting and your process. I mean, has it changed a lot today as it did 40 years ago, 30 years ago?
They look different, and they're not as thick and angry and intense. I had to give up on that, even though I like that kind of work. I like serious work. If I was a writer, I'd be some Russian soul, you know.
If you go to Charlie's studio, he's got about 50, 60, how many Moby Dicks?
250.
250.
Yeah.
And
That's a good example of how I felt Melville. I love Melville. He wrote the book. When I read it first, I thought it was written by an old man. Now that I'm an old man, it was written by a boy. Now, when he got through, he wanted to write a book, like me. He got through with his voyages, and he wanted to be taken seriously. The end for both of us. He wrote Moby Dick and ended up working the rest of his life. I wanted to be that kind of American tome, that kind of deep stuff.
what's the white whale for you?
Oh, it's a legitimate cause. It's every aggrievement, everything that's held us back. An interesting thing, I'll tell the story. I love Moby Dick. I had I do some contracting work as well. I'm working on a building, and the stonemason, John McQuinn's a great guy, and he came to my studio to get paid, and he's a Trump supporter, but he's talking about Moby Dick because he knows that. He's reading Moby Dick, and he's literally a smart guy. And he said he's at the chapter now where Ahab nails the doubloon to the mast. Everybody, if you saw the movie or know that scene, nails the doubloon to the mast and tells the crew, let's make an oath that we're going to quit the commerce we came here to do. We're going to go after this white whale. We're going to go after this white whale because he represents all the aggrievement, all the anger. Everybody stood in line, got in line in front of you. Everything that's kept you from being who you wanted to be, or taking you where you wanted to go. Let's go get that malignancy. Let's take that piece of nature on as men. And they all go, okay. And they decide they're not going to go do their job, which is to get barrels of whale, take it home, and pay their mortgages and feed their kid. They're going after this thing. And that's what Moby Dick represents. Now, a 28-year-old boy wrote that.
Amazing. Yeah.
In 1850. So I admire that, thinking.
I like that.
And this isn't Moby Dick, unfortunately. I mean, I would like to have thought I would have gotten there by now.
So one of your most recent pieces, I don't know, I came to your studio and I saw The Hopeful Sign.
Yeah.
And I thought, wow. I mean,
Yeah.
it was like, it was a knockout. It was just so, yes. It was like a yes moment. It was like the John Lennon when he goes up and Yoko Ono and he up the stairs and it says yes. And I'm like, oh.
Yeah, this is, Jim and I talk all the time. We complain all the time. It's a lot of politics.
No, Charlie complains.
He's left, or far left, I can't imagine. And he suffers more than I do. So, but I do suffer these times because I have young kids and I feel like the bad guys are winning. That's how I feel. So I was on a phone conversation with Jim in my car. I was pulled in, we're finishing a conversation. Sometimes you're on the phone when you come home. And I just said, Jim, it was William Barr just said something stupid. I said, I feel hopeless. And Jim, blah, blah, blah. We said, okay. And I hung up and I walked into the house. I saw my wife, my kids, my 2 dogs, 2 cats, 2 cars, 2 hot water heaters, beautiful place. I ain't gonna take that, I'm not gonna let it. You can't own that, You gotta get out of my life. I'm not going down that rabbit hole. And somebody had asked me to put a piece up in Portland on this top of this gallery, and it's right at a corner where everybody turns. And I said, yeah, I'll do it. And then I called the sign company. This is what's cool about it. I'm glad I lived long enough for this. And anybody who's young enough to do this, the world is changing so fast. There's so many materials you can move to and check out. You've got to go. Sign shops are the most creative places in the world. They're doing things with cutting dyes. They cut out stuff and they put neons in and LED lights. It's unbelievable. So I went back to Lewiston, my hometown. I love to go there. I go back. It's sentimental, but it means a lot to me, that town. And I went to this place and I was working on some neon work a couple of years ago, one of my great ideas. And I came across this sign shop and I go, how do you do this stuff? He showed me what they do. So I called him up and I had David Wolf and me made a little sketch of Hopeful.
Yeah.
It was that big. I sent it off to him on email. It came back on a tractor trailer. I said, hell, if I had kept drinking, I could have stayed at Finelli's all day long. And my wife couldn't complain because look what I just made. I got a 24-foot sign. I could have drawn on the cocktail napkin and sent it out. So this world's great. You got fabricators who can see, help you create. And that company's full of real guys, you know. And they're having the best time working on these signs. We're putting one that's as long as this whole gallery in Lewiston, Maine, on Thursday. And I'm lighting it up on New Year's Eve. Now, how cool is that? And the Hope Town's coming. I just went to the city council, talked to them on Thursday, and there's 7 of them. 6 of them loved it. One guy told me I was a lousy artist and it's not art. It really did. It was a pain in the ass. I was about to try it because I told my wife I'm going to win them all over, but he pissed me off. I wouldn't feel like it. But I was gonna. He didn't deserve my attention. Okay? He said I put a rattle up. I've been giving this town art. And they're hating it more and more. So not all of them, but it's the old guard. This is changing. I feel like art really moves people. Now, I'm not putting up a giant steel sheet that they can't see through and telling them to live with it. This kind of stuff.
We went up for the lighting up in Portland. We had 200 people on the streets cheering when the lights went on. I mean, it was really a great moment.
Yeah.
And this time, and this day.
Yeah.
And there's something also about Hopeful. You know, because Obama took hope, and he actually won an advertising award with the word hope. It was an ad. It was advertising.
Yeah.
Hopeful. There's something, I don't know, that has more weight to me.
Well, I don't own any more than just the idea.
We're going to make sure you own that word. We want.
No, I mean, I don't want to give Indiana too much credit, but
Yeah.
it comes from that kind of thing. I know antecedents. I know what it's about. It's manufactured art. And it's not a bad idea, but I like the idea that this is really important. What that does with these paintings, one reason I've had some trouble with my career in the art world is because I'm not consistent at making product. I'm not, that's the American way. If you're making Buicks, you keep making Buicks. You don't go make a Ford pickup truck. That kind of thing. I can't stand that.
Yeah.
I find it tyranny. I'd rather drive a truck than do that for a living.
Yeah. No.
And you know, I've found other ways to make good money. Real estate's a great way. I mean, so I don't have to kill my art for it.
Yeah.
And so I like the idea that I can put that in here and have no confusion whatsoever. It's other people's problems. That is probably more postmodern than anything I've ever gotten around. This idea, that's all available. Now I'm working on prints,
Yeah.
woodcuts, and
I mean, when I met Charlie at that poker game,
yes, that Dranoff took us to.
yeah, at his
Evil
place,
Glenn. Dranoff.
I knew you as a printmaker.
Yeah, that's
In
right.
fact, Glenn had just published some beautiful little illumination
Yeah.
prints, these dry points, gorgeous dry points. And I sort of knew your abstract work. Some of it had imagery in it,
Yeah.
driven from,
Yeah.
I don't know, church and work and
Yeah.
and family. But then I went back and I saw your early etchings were like these Dutch landscape etchings, beautifully drawn. I had no idea. And there was something about that because I got interested in printmaking with 17th century Dutch landscape
Yeah.
etchings. And there they were in your early works. It was kind of like a wow.
Yeah, I like that. I love meeting Glenn because he was a scholar and he understood printmaking, and he understood the nature of it and the sharing in it and the marketing of it. And I introduced you, and then that becomes part of our narrative. We know something about the medium. I'm back. Geez, that was 30-something years ago. Now I'm back to making serious prints again. The thing about those prints, that type of printmaking at that time, you had to know how to draw to do it. So I came from a school of art that if you couldn't play an instrument, you couldn't be in the band. I mean, that's just how it was then.
Mm-hmm.
So now it's different. And I don't say it's worse, believe me. Art always gets better. I might not understand it, but it gets better. It always has. It always has a progress. just,
Although there's something about the digital prints that are,
well, it'll throw it out.
yeah.
It'll throw it out. Digital printing is a problem. What's making me work harder, because of the digital print, I think my new woodcuts are going to be much more successful. They're so physical. We bought some pieces in one time, and it was a very fortunate woman from the Met acquired a suite. And I remember her, and Glenn would know this, and you know it, and anybody else in the print world. She flipped them over and was touching the paper, looking at the backs of them, just feeling the sense of
And you
it.
can see how they were
rice
printed with
paper,
a spoon
yeah.
on the wood.
Seeing the paper come through, there's something so supple and intimate when you own a print, you see that. It's like opening an old master's print, you see the marks, museum marks at the bottom where it's been stored, it's just all the stamps on them,
Yeah.
on Leonardo, I mean. So now when you print on Arches, you get no life out of it, you get a picture. But there's something about the nature of.
I mean, Charlie's one of the few artists still working today that, you know, does large wood cuts, and he cuts the wood himself. And he does etching, and he does engraving. He did a dry point, Heartland. It was like a 6-foot dry point. If you know anything about printmaking, that's where you take the copper plate and you draw right into it. It's not etching. You don't put it in acid. It's drawn directly into the metal plate, and it's a masterpiece. I think it's.
I'm so OCD, it's got to be. Just give me a great big bone to chew on. I'm a happy guy, and especially since I quit drinking 28 years ago. So that's the second half of the story. Not that that's important, but it says something about what I need now to do to stay spiritual, focused, consistent, and healthy, and be an artist. Back in the old days, when I was a downtown artist, there was no money. We had ourselves quite a time. There was a scene. And we got invaded all of a sudden by people buying our lofts. New museum moves in, and we're getting surrounded. And now we have to act out because people see it coming out of the bar with Stuart, heading down to the Baby Doll Lounge. Whereas before, nobody would ever dream of coming down to that part of the world. You know, it was ours. And then it all.
I want to talk a little bit about these, because these have a lot of collage and printmaking elements in your paintings. But I wanted to talk about collaboration, and also talking about when you first came to New York in the 70s, you were working for Adolf Gottlieb.
One of the jobs I got when I came to, I was a Gottlieb, I painted Gottliebs, yeah.
You were painting Gottlieb's.
Yeah.
What was Gottlieb doing?
He was busy. He had Gottlieb. He had orders. He was a great guy. And the thing is, you love Rothko and Guston. I met these men of that generation, and they came out of the World War II era. They were artists between the wars when there wasn't a nickel to be made, and New York was ignored. And what happened was they became so successful that all of a sudden they couldn't turn it down. They had to take every order. They had to get it all. It was like it's like hunger. It's like quenching a thirst. So he was really something. He was really a good guy. But I would go in there. I didn't like him too much, but I needed the money. And
He was a great guy. I didn't like
well,
him
he
too
was.
much.
I didn't like him because I was a serious artist. You know what I mean? I was going to be.
What did you think about, you know, Adolf Gottlieb, big
Yeah.
artist at the time, and you're sitting there? I guess, what were you painting?
I painted the egg, and then some bacon.
Was there like an outline you had to like work within?
Well, he'd give me a print. He'd give me some prints, and I just would paint. Then he would get on a step ladder. This is kind of unfair to the old guy, but he would get on a step ladder with a palette knife. I'd hold the knife, he'd go, and then it would have it'd be a Gottlieb.
So you would do the sun, and he would do the like.
I call it the bacon and the egg.
So how would you feel about someone doing that nowadays for you?
If I was selling well, I think it'd be great. I'd go off. If somebody could figure out how to do that again, they'd be insane. I'd be like, Jesus, God, I can think of a million other things we could do than that. Hopeful signs, urban rattles, that kind of stuff. Public art's interesting. This is very intimate work. It's personal to me. I was just talking to David Leisner. Anybody understands? I need to be this kind of painter to be good at other things. It takes up a lot of the noise, absorbs it. So when I'm making prints. So in my studio in Maine, I painted some of these paintings there. I have a Jersey City studio. But up there, I painted the walls white, I patched the holes, I painted all the tables. You would never know that a painting was ever in that room because printmaking brain is a different brain than the mush brain. This is the mush brain. This is like lost. It's wonderful. It's problem solving. It's great work for a lapsed Catholic. It's sin, be forgiven, sin, be forgiven, sin.
It's a mush, is that what you call it?
Mush brains.
Okay.
I mean, a painter's brain starts at the beginning and it goes to 1, 2, 62, 35, back to 8 and 3, and it just moves around. Where printmaking goes,
You have to know the first color, the second color. the
layers.
first-
No, it's kind of layer. No, it's not. But it's
Yeah,
wonderful.
yeah.
The demands an edition print put on you is so wonderful. What I love about an edition print is difficult because they're all the same. So, you know, Bubba down the road in his double wide can have one, and the Pope can have one, and they're the same thing. It's the ultimate democracy,
Like Coca-Cola.
like Coca-Cola. And they can afford them and collect them. I collect a lot of art, and I collect prints because I like to own a lot of work, and I like to own a lot of different kinds of work by a lot of people, and I love the mediums and what's going on.
So Charlie has a big art collection, and one of the pieces that you have is one that we have hanging upstairs is one of the cardboard pieces by Rauschenberg, the Cardbirds.
Cardbirds.
And you were telling me a story about your son, but also how
Oh, yeah.
how in the 70s when you discovered that.
I got a loft on Bleecker and Lafayette, and he had a studio around the corner. I kind of knew about.
Who did?
Rauschenberg.
Rauschenberg.
Yeah, in Lafayette.
Yeah.
So I used to walk to work in the morning, and I was a country boy. I'd go, this city is so filthy. It drove me crazy. I'd walk over cardboard boxes and stuff, and I'd go, God, a pain in the ass. This place is a mess. I'm OCD, so I want to sweep it. And and then I went to a show at Castelli, and it was cardboard boxes. It just delighted me. It just couldn't believe he was so smart.
You're walking past all this garbage, and then all of a sudden it's like art.
So when I got enough money to buy one from you, I couldn't wait. I took it home, and my son goes, gee, Dad, what is that? I could do that. I said, let me tell you a story. This is what it's about. When you can think like that, you'll be okay. Someday, hopefully this will hang in your office, and you'll know
Yeah.
what I mean.
That's funny. There was a New Yorker cartoon someone just sent me. This kid's looking with his mother at a painting. It's like 2 lines or whatever, and the kid goes, "I could do that, Mom," and she goes, "But you didn't."
I know, it's killing us. It drives us. If we push it, the fucking banana part of my English. We got to deal with all that stuff.
The banana?
The banana is gonna be in our minds forever. I mean,
Was that genius, or was that what do you think about the banana?
The banana, I got the banana down pat. The banana's only the dialogue because somebody paid $120,000.
Right.
We were talking earlier. Robert Rauschenberg, this little man, goes to William de Kooning's studio. Now, de Kooning was considered the lion of the
He was
band.
like a big macho.
He wasn't big, but he was macho and
Yeah.
crazy. And,
Yeah.
I mean, he was
Picasso-esque.
he was the dude. He goes to a studio, knocks on his door, and asks him for a drawing, and he goes, because I want to erase it. Now, de Kooning got it. So he gave him the most complex drawing he had to erase. That's a beautiful thing. It's an incredible idea. So that's the beginning of this Dadaist idea in American art. He goes to a great artist, takes his drawing, and erases it. De Kooning gets it.
Yeah.
And was in on it. Now, that is not a transactional situation. That was
So
about,
kids, if you're watching, go to Charlie's studio.
and for
See
10
if Charlie
grand,
gets it.
10 grand, I'll give you a drawing. But the banana thing is, we've taken it so far that it needs money to make it valid. When I was at the city council in Lewiston, Maine, with a guy barking at me, there was one of the guys goes, well, I guess if a banana's art, anything can be art. So what we do is we push an audience away. Who do we want to speak to? I mean, who do I, Charlie Hewitt, at 73 years, want to speak to? I don't care about Jeff Bezos and that. I don't. I never thought that's who I'd be talking to. So artists have to have an audience. You know, I paint for my grandchildren. I paint for my parents. I paint Arshil Gorky tiptoes around in my studio. I have visits. I have people I care about. and Guston and Lane and people have helped me out. I have reasons, I have criteria. Okay, I put it like that. I mean, that's old school. There's criteria in the work. I guess you know what I'm talking, we all have those, right? We have those people who visit us and they belong to us.
Are you, when you're painting, like Rauschenberg always painted with the TV blasting and music, and are you,
I paint in quiet, I print with noise.
okay.
Yeah, mark
So you
that.
paint quiet,
Yeah.
and the room is quiet, what's going on inside your head?
Oh. It's just
We can't.
chaos. Well, it's like, you know, I got tons of paper and I'm cleaning up the mess while I'm painting. I'm just like a nut, you know, I'm like, I love it. I'm in my boxer shorts, I got paint in my ear, and I love to.
Are you, yeah, are you, you know,
I'm
are
like-
you here, are you there?
I'm not any place but, okay, good example of, this goes on the whole painting cycle. I'm with my wife and my daughter, we're having supper, and they're sitting there. And my wife looks to my daughter and says, see, Daddy, he's sitting with us with a big smile, but he's not here, you know. I go, what do you mean? You're really thinking about that painting, aren't you? I go, yeah. I'm trying to fix the upper left-hand corner. David here said it so well. He said, when you paint, when you sculpt, you sleep at night. When you paint, you can't sleep at night because you're always fixing it. And so I love that process. I love fixing the bumps and sanding it and worrying about it, coming back in, flipping the lights on in the middle of the night, going, I'll go back to sleep. Just, it's strange. And then they end up here and they look like I knew what I was doing.
Yeah, they certainly do. When I saw this new body of work, I was sort of floored. They were so beautiful and strong and quiet at the same time, and
With that.
I feel like every time I go into your studio, it's like 6 months go by, and all of a sudden it's like, when did this happen? And you know, and I almost feel like, to me, and I don't know if it's the same way for you, I feel like you maybe like a great writer who, you know, learns to throw out words and, you know, and just,
Yeah, you gotta start. Just start. I doodle all the time. Maybe on my calendars, my calendars are covered in doodles and marks and dates. I mean, starts off organized. By the time they're through, there's massively intricate complexities of lines and stuff. So I do the same thing when I start the painting. I'll draw all over them and then erase them. You know. And you know, the other thing is to think about. I'm very lucky. This is really important to say. To have you and Sarah and everybody else in this gallery, to have a venue to work for, to have an audience, is really terrific too. I mean, it really is. And this is my hats off to all my, this is the banana thing goes back to. I have friends who will get up tomorrow and work, many of them, like work tomorrow, they'll work next week, and there's nobody looking at it, but they believe in it. And there's something great, and I love that idea, but I'm grateful that I don't know who I'd be if I didn't have this. I'd be making noise in some places.
yeah, oh, sure.
I'd be running for public office or getting in trouble or something.
That's not a bad idea.
Not a bad idea.
Think about that. Do you want to talk about collaboration?
That is really the best word
Yeah.
to talk about, because that's why I love printmaking. That's why I love met Glenn through that, Cheryl Palavin, and Tony Kirk, and all these people who bring you into lives, people's lives. And then I love printmaking. It took me to Vinyl Haven, got me back to Maine. You know, it's social. It's so social. It's kind of like you're standing on a press, you're working on with a master printer, and they're giving up so much to you. And in that point, you're even, you're equal, and then they let you sign it when it's over. It's really incredible.
You used to produce theater too, you told me.
I had to make a living. I produced theater, yeah. I married to Tanya.
You married an actress.
Yeah, a wonderful woman. Should not have married. But I was a producer. I love producing. I need validation. That's my weakest part of me. I need to be relevant. That's going to be the hardest thing to understand as I get older. I got to maintain. So when I had a chance to produce theater, I got to raise the funds. I remember the show was going to open. I got a white suit. I go up to Baltimore to get some money from the Arts Council up there, the Humanities. I showed up just before the show with enough money to pay the actors. Now that's living, you know. It was like right on the edge. It was like, and everybody applauded. They're going to get paid. Show goes on. So I like the theater. I used to like, there's a bar down the street from the theater called the Green Door, and it had a little balcony, and I would go down there and have a drink and watch all the cars leave the theater. It was like I caused that to happen. I caused these people to go there and do that. But I love theater. The first thing, I love theater more than I like painting, by far. I get moved by theater. It stays in my head when I see a play. I just saw Colored Girls the other night, a college production. I can't get it out of my head. I came to New York and I went to the Delacorte Theater with Richard Bosman and my girlfriend. And we went and saw Richard III with Richard Dreyfuss in it. Saw Richard III. I'd never seen a play before. And show ended. I couldn't do it. I couldn't handle how I was feeling. I told them to leave me alone. I just walked home. I was just roam New York with that. I didn't know that happened. I didn't know that was there in the world. Even as I say it, I'm touched by it. That was a great night. Another important night in my life was I was having a very difficult time in my marriage. We weren't going anywhere. We went together and I felt very bogged down. I wasn't having a life. A friend of mine who was an actor gave me tickets to a show called Fences. It was opening night of Fences with James Earl Jones. They had enough money for 5 nights to run for 5 nights. And he gave me his tickets. He was an actor in the Negro Ensemble. He did Soldier Stories. So he gave me a ticket. So I'm used to going into the theater and taking a right and going for the seats in the sky. I was ready to take a right. The guy said, "No, you're this way." I sat 3rd row center and watched a play and cried like a baby. That was my father. As I saw him play, oh, geez, I remember. So when I left, I said to my wife, "Dear, we've got to try to be great. We got to try. Even if we fail, we got to try." That was great. I mean, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I saw that.
It's got to be. Well, things happen all the time, you know.
Yeah.
In theater, I remember every show I've ever seen, the shows you see, I come back from them deeply moved by listening to words. So maybe I tried books on tape. I can't do that either. That don't work. I tried drinking. That didn't work out. That was the worst.
He gave that one up.
No, but I mean, we tried everything to get through it.
Yeah.
And one thing I remember, this guy brought up, there was a film, I was on the Bowery, it was my studio, and I remember this guy came over and he was looking at my pen and he said, I was so angry, it's because I didn't know what to do. And I said, I just can't wait to be 60. And he goes, what do you mean? I said, because I hope by then at least I know what I'm doing. And I'm 73 and I still don't know what I'm doing. I don't want to know. It's like so. Because what happened in New York at that time, the Soho scene started, the galleries, people were creating content, their images. The people had ideas of who they were. So they would make marks. Sarah would have this piece. Everybody, it would stop looking at pop art. You could tell a Warhol right away, you know. And I didn't know how to do that. I didn't have, I was too romantic to do it.
Too romantic
to find a product art. I just couldn't think that way about making art that way. So whatever that means.
Yeah. Yeah.
You'd be a lot richer if I was.
Yeah.
But I would probably, thank God I did.
I am a lot richer.
Yeah, well, sure. So you're interesting. So I meet you. You're a private dealer. You got it made, work at home.
Yeah.
Plenty of money in your pocket. What happened to you? Huh?
The first show I had with Charlie was at my last gallery, which was Lafayette and Spring Street, 10th floor. It was like you know, the Daily News Superman building. Nobody, I mean, you had to get really lost to find us. And that was the first show.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it was...
Across the street from Black.
And then when the landlord came in, I was there 3 years, and the guy comes in, he goes, I'm doubling your rent. And I guess it was month to month. I said, you can't do that. I can. I'm like, so because of him, this jerk, I had him, you know, look for a place. And I came to Chelsea, you know, galleries were just starting to come. And I saw a space on 20th Street. It was like...
Who was the guy, Gursky?
The jerk?
No, the guy you were going to work with on 20th Street.
Oh, on 20th.
Wasn't it a print dealer?
No, there was a space at like 535 20th on the 10th floor. It's like $1,000 rent. Like kind of a nice big space, but no air conditioning and no windows. No, and you know, and then I saw this building. And it had a for rent sign. And it was the second floor here, it was upstairs. And it was probably like $2,000. You know, it was like more than I wanted to, or kind of could afford. And also it was 23rd and 10th, so it was like way out of the loop. Everybody was on 20th Street. So I thought, but it was such a great space. It was so beautiful, the building. And I said, you know,
Yeah.
so if I had stayed there, so all of a sudden I'm like, I'm an art dealer, like a real one.
Yeah, I know.
By chance, almost.
Then out of that, one day I come over and he says, "You got to see what I've been doing." I know he's a comedian. He shows me this little clip. He had the UPS guy. He had to drop a box full of fragile stickers down the staircase, and he filmed it. I said, "That's great," because I knew Jim's getting a little crazy here. You know, this is running a shop. After a while, you're paying rent and dealing with. It's like everything else. It can turn into a business. And I said, "I'll offer this up, Jim. I'll be your producer because I'm a natural producer. I can herd all the sheep together, put it together, and we'll meet, but we have to meet every Thursday at 3 o'clock. Every Thursday. We got a promise. We're going to meet every Thursday at 3 o'clock. Agreed. There was a gas station across the street. We got iced coffee and donuts. We meet. We're going to write episodes of Madness Art. First Thursday, Jim can't make it. No, we're going to make it. No, right, because everybody, I bet you 90% of us sitting here can't make a date on Thursday and make it. Something's going to show up. But what we did, we made it every Thursday. We'd sit here at 3 o'clock and write for 2 hours, laugh like crazy, come up with scenarios, and started doing this crazy thing. We come up with all these characters. The evil Grandranoff. There's just people. Nobody was safe in this gallery. We'd do shooting. We'd shoot. Would you like to see the show? People couldn't leave because we'd have everybody set up for a scene. His mother, his sons. It was so great. And I said, you know, I don't care if I don't make any money. This is the best art experience I've ever had in my life. Putting those things out and laughing and feeling good about it. Because, you know, the humor gets to your soul. It makes you feel good. And the truth is, and this is really amazing, the honest of it, I'm still romantically in love with my profession in a most passionate way. And laughing about art does the same, being in that world makes me feel the same way, that I'm reaching people and connecting on some way that really can give me something back.
Yeah, well, you can see
Thanks
it.
for that, Jim, because you're good at it. He's funny. He drives me crazy. I mean, produces.
He doesn't drive me crazy.
We switch roles, but oh my God, it was really fun.
So,
Yeah, how we doing?
should we, anybody have any questions? Throw it out there. I mean, there was.
Yeah. I mean, the last thing I want to say
Yes.
is, I mean, and this goes to how I'm feeling about the banana and where we've gone with money and art and all this. You know, this art thing it's important to understand, realize that there's life and then there's art. Now, and I heard this story, it could have been Elaine de Kooning probably, this story, Giacometti's cat. Do you know the story of Giacometti's cat? Well, Giacometti is the ultimate studio artist of all time. He had a life, he spent his time as studio. But he was asked by a reporter one time, if you had a fire, in this, what would you take? Would you take the Rembrandt or the cat? And he said, I'd take the cat. And the reporter said, really? He says, come on, the Rembrandt's art, the cat is life. That's got to be remembered in all of this. We're getting a little out of hand. The prices changing. We're not, the metaphor makes so much sense.
Would you save the banana or the Rembrandt?
That's the new narrative, right? So that's all I wanted to get out off my chest before we go on to questions or any kind of comments about. Because all of you lived in this world, you've seen it, and I was just.
I'll just ask you one, because artists always ask me, like young artists, advice to young artists. One question I had was,
Get a job. Take care of your teeth.
Your teeth? Yeah.
Well, Ginsburg's the one that told them that. Ginsburg went to a college, they asked for advice, he says, take care of your teeth, you're gonna be a poet, you're gonna be broke. So no, the thing is, this is really, really cool. This is important too, I tell artists. Do not be a victim. Under no, and this is what I learned from that generation, de Koonin's and Gustins, do not ever tell people you need money. Don't ever show it. Don't act like it. You'll never get anywhere. They might buy you lunch and give you $20 so they flee. Always enjoy what you act like you love what you do. Never ask for anything more than they're willing to give. And that's really, really critical, is to just always position yourself in a positive place.
Yeah. And love what you do, that's for
And
sure.
love what you do, because it's decades. The phone didn't ring for a long, long time, you know?
Yeah.
It's a wilderness, and all of us, even Christ had to spend some time in the wilderness, you know? All of us do.
I don't know.
Yeah, well, you do. Trust me. Yahweh.
Any questions out there in La La Land? Do they? No?
Not yet, not yet.
How long did it take you to finish your first piece of art that you thought was done?
And you thought, okay.
Yeah.
The question was, when's the first time that you finished your first piece? He said, and that's another good question. When do you know it's done? How do you know when it's done?
When it's finished. I mean, there's no other way. I mean,
Okay.
it's no other way.
Well, you torture yourself, I know, sometimes.
I do. I work it a lot.
Yeah.
Now I'm painting on black canvas, which helps because it designs the picture really quickly, so it gives me more chance. But I like to stay on it. My first painting I finished that I knew was good. Yeah, I did it on the Bowery in New York. And my old friend David here, a surrealist sculptor, he liked me a lot. He came in and gave me a kiss on the lips.
Yeah.
It was like weird, but I liked it. I mean, not that I want, you know what I mean, but I liked doing it. Because he thought I'd finally caught some grip, you know, he cared. Those guys were, those women and those men of that generation were very generous. They gave a lot of time.
Is that when you knew, when did you say, I'm an artist? I'm actually an artist.
Well, as soon as I started paying for it, yeah. I mean, I did art school for a year, and then I got a studio, and that was, no, I tell you, I remember I got my studio, it was on Bleecker in the Bowery, and I looked out at night, and there's all these other lofts lit up. I go, oh my God, now I'm in, I'm playing the game, right, Chris? We'd see them. We know they're staying up late, they're working, you better stay up and work. And that thing gets going, and it's a wonderful wheel. It's not envy, it can't be that, that's evil, but admiration and respect and discipline. I mean, the world was so amazingly small and intimate. I tell Jim this story about Dwayne Hanson. I don't know if you know his work, he's a great artist.
Photorealist sculptor.
So I had a loft on the top floor. I used to take I had a doggy, a little tiny doggy my girlfriend had. So I'd take her up on the roof to take a pee, and so I wouldn't have to walk her. And I'm walking, I've got this dog up on the roof, and I'm looking, there's another building next to me with a window. And I see a cop with a billy club. So I go, oh, man, I knock on the window, bam, bam, bam. And this guy opens the window. I said, what the hell's going on in here? He says, come on up. So I jump in the window. It's Dwayne Hanson. He just came to town. He did that great piece of... So I let him walk his dog on the roof, too, because he didn't want to do it. He had a beagle. And we became... That's what I mean, like that kind of connection. Dwayne was a great guy.
Yeah.
Last time I saw him, he had all these marks around his neck. Fiberglass gave him cancer.
Oh, wow, yeah.
But he was great. I mean, that's new art. For me, that was like, you can do that?
Yeah.
That's my whole life has been around, you can do that?
Yeah.
How come I didn't do that?
Any other, yes?
I appreciated that you're differentiating the linearness of the printmaking to what happens in your head with your painting process. And could you talk a little bit more about your process in the painting? I relate it, and also in the printmaking, this difference of, I remember that wood cutting process and rubbing with the spoon. So, and then I look at the digital today, and some of the things you can get are very impressive.
Yes.
And, you know, but to open up to it has been, for me, very hard. But I see some things can happen. Where do you...
You can mix them. The trouble with the digital, it doesn't make a mistake. And I believe in the mistake in art. The dirty brush theory. You think your picture's not working, you pick up the wrong brush and it goes, oh, that's just what you need. Any idea that I'm in control of this is really problematic. I mean, that's the old AA theory. I mean, you can believe in everyone as long as you don't believe he's you. And that's the same way I feel as a painter. I am not a god in my studio. I am a lesser mortal transporting myself through this space and trying to figure out these problems. Printmaking requires the discipline of that. And the other part about it, I make sketches for the woodcuts, and then I talk to the master printer, it's kind of like my caddy, we talk. What are we going to put down first? What's layers going to look like? What can happen? Now, I'm starting to use some digital printing in some of it, because it's a tool, and it saves me a lot of labor on some of the prints, so we'll see what goes on with the bigger prints. But the problem is I should have said right up front, the answer to that was, it doesn't make a mistake. You can't modify it enough to make it interesting to me.
What's that?
The digital printing.
Digital.
Yeah. It's flat.
Yeah.
It's something that happens in a woodcut. You got skips, all the life around it, the muscle in the print when you're carving. I'm doing it as we're talking. So it's kind of like John Henry, right? I've got this whole. I'm gonna go drive my stake. It's a metaphor.
John Henry.
The steel driver, the guy who nailed spikes by hand.
Okay.
And the machine does it. So you got to be careful. I don't want to be too big a hero there. But the other thing is I like being present when I make the work too. So that would take it away too.
It's nice to be present while you're making the work.
Yes.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Well,
You still work in the city?
Jersey City.
Jersey City.
Yeah.
And Charlie moved to Maine about
10 or 12 years ago.
10, 12 years ago.
What kind of music do you prefer, and what music can express your work? Because it's like jazz or something?
No. It's more like Mark Knopfler, Emmylou Harris, Merle Haggard. I'm really, really bad music. I got my band. I'm okay in a band. And I like country music, ballads, stories. I like stories, listen to story songs. I'm really into Mark Knopfler and Emmylou Harris right now. And I was into, I tried Mozart. He's good for me. Mozart's good. But then he starts making me noise. It's getting annoying me. I can do a little bit. David, I apologize. He's such a wonderful musician. I like it when I print. I don't like it when I paint.
Got a question from the web.
Oh,
Who do you like making paintings now?
what's that?
Who do you like who's painting now?
Oh, what artists do you like any?
Oh, Jesus. Dana Schultz, all women.
Okay.
Yeah, it's incredible.
Dana Schutz, yeah.
Yeah, she's incredible. Like Kathy Bradford. I like this new woman's feminist work, this kind of figurative imagery. I wish I would have thought about. Guston would have loved it. He would have found that's exactly what he was getting at. This new casual narrative, this kind of sexy kind of painting that's rich pinks and greens. It's annoying and wonderful. I mean, it's like, looks easy, it's hard. I like it a lot.
Yeah.
I'm getting tired of white guys, I mean, we got to get used to it. We caused all this trouble.
Me too.
Well, in the artwork, so,
Tell the Guston story, because Charlie, he was sort of your mentor,
Yeah.
and he was also an alcoholic, and he died
Yeah.
really from alcohol.
yeah.
But the painting that you saw, the story that he told you.
This is so at Skidmore College, I go to a lecture, and this Philip Guston's giving a lecture on his lecture was really brilliant. It wasn't about Philip Guston, but it was. His lecture, he had to teach a lot. So he had a slide carousel of his 100 favorite paintings. He would show his 100 favorite paintings, Piero on through. And as he would talk about why he liked them. What a great way to teach, So I'm watching the slides, and I got a football scholarship to college, and I did that for a couple of years. So my college education was okay, but it wasn't the world. And I was getting the world coming here. And so Guston was the first artist I got to listen to speak. And then one slide came up, and there was a slide of a painting of a Chardin painting, small Chardin. It's in the Boston Museum, of a bowl of cherries. And it's a very pewtered bowl with its beautiful cherries. And he goes, you know why I like this painting? And I thought he was going to go, the ellipse works in this space, and I love the way this figure of ground relationship. No, He goes, I like it because, you know, it's so delicious to look at. And if you ever thought that what life wasn't worth living, you ought to remember it was just a bowl of cherries. What a great. So years later, this is what I like this guy for. That's why I love Guston. I'll tell you this. So I meet him at a party, and my friend David here had a show at the Guggenheim, and afterwards we had a party, and Guston was there, and he goes, I go over to see him, and he's drinking scotch and milk, and he looks really bad. But he was out, he just went out to San Francisco. Something's starting to happen in San Francisco. And then he dies. The San Francisco shows, and they have a show at the Corcoran Museum. And I'm living in Southern Maryland then, producing theater. So I drive up to the Corcoran, and they got these giant marble staircases on two sides going up to the galleries. And I take one staircase up, and I'll go up to the gallery, and I see the last paintings. They're the size of this wall, of giant cherries. He's dying, and he's painting giant cherries with big stems on them and windows in them. I'll never forget it. It was like, wow.
Yeah.
That, you know, when there was, what's that line de Kooning said? In the Renaissance, they had a great floor to paint on. And when there was blood on the sword, somebody was dead or dying. In other words, they meant what they said. He kept his images together, they were personal, and they meant everything to him his whole life. And as he was dying, he's painting cherries.
Yeah.
And I was a little boy, 21-year-old boy who could hear that and know that. Kind of a privilege in life, you know.
That's fantastic. I love that story. That's probably a great place to end.
Yes.
On the bowl of cherries,
Do we have any more internet time?
Instagram.
I thought that was great. It's Instagram. Actually, somebody's watching. It's probably my daughter.
We'll leave them wanting more.
Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
We didn't kill you, did we?
7:40.
7:40? No, it's only an hour. Good. I hate it.
All right, let's finish up the wine.
This is my oldest friend from New York, right here. You. That was back in the old days.
Good talk, Charlie.
I can listen to you guys chat for like 5 more hours.
I know. It's like,
I really heard you go through because I was shy and I think maybe I didn't wait for
And you knew about this?
Thank you so much. Oh my God. Yeah, that was great. You look like Jay Yeah. Have some wine. I'm very confused.
yeah, we did. With I think a good recorder and a good camera that I
Post that on like YouTube.
Yeah, like break it up.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You got a lot of them.
I know.
No, right. I'm like, hey,